What if I told you that the moment she chose another man, the moment your world seemed to fracture into a million unrecognizable pieces, was not the end of your story? What if in that profound, gut-wrenching silence that followed her decision, you weren't hearing a verdict of your inadequacy, but rather an invitation? An invitation to become the man you were always meant to be. Imagine, if you will, that this searing pain you're feeling right now. And let's be honest, it is searing a physical ache in the chest, a hollowness that echoes with every breath is not a curse. Imagine it's a crucible, a forge, a fire that has been lit, not to consume you, but to burn away everything that was holding you back, everything that was not truly you. Most men in this moment break. They are cast into a sea of self-pity and confusion, frantically swimming through the wreckage of shared memories, replaying every conversation, every glance, every touch, desperately searching for the black box, the one critical error that led to the crash. What did I do wrong? Was I not enough? How could she after everything? These questions become a torturous loop, a phantom limb that aches long after the separation is complete. But you are not most men, or at least you don't have to be. Because you found your way here to this conversation, which tells me that a part of you, perhaps a small, quiet part you can barely hear over the noise of your own heartbreak, suspects there is another way. A path that doesn't lead to begging or chasing or trying to piece together a shattered vase in the desperate hope that it will hold water again. There is a path of strength, of dignity, of profound and unshakable inner peace. It is the path of the Stoic, and it begins with a single revolutionary thought. Her choice was never truly about you. It was about her, and your journey from this moment forward is entirely about you. The question is no longer, why did she leave? The question, the only one that truly matters now, is, who will I become? This is the crossroads where you stand today. One path leads back into the fog of what was a landscape of regret and what-ifs. The other leads to a version of yourself that cannot be shaken. A man who wins not by getting her back, but by letting her go so completely that he reclaims the most valuable thing he ever possessed himself. And make no mistake, you will win. Because while she might expect you to be lost, you are about to become the man she couldn't see, the man she wasn't ready for. The man who never truly loses because his worth was never attached to anything outside of himself in the first place. To begin this journey, we must first look at the nature of the pain itself. We must sit with it, understand it not as an enemy, but as a messenger. The great Stoic philosopher Epictetus, a man who was born a slave and rose to become one of the most revered teachers in the Roman Empire, gave us the foundational key to this entire process. He said, "We are not disturbed by events, but by our opinions about them." Read that again. Let it sink into the marrow of your bones. It is not the event, her choosing another, that is destroying you. It is your opinion of the event. It is the story you are telling yourself about what it means. The story says, "I am not worthy." The story says, "I have failed." The story says, "My future is empty without her." But what if these are just stories, fiction spun by a mind in the grip of pain and an ego that has been deeply wounded? The Stoics teach us to become observers of our thoughts, not prisoners of them. The event itself is neutral. A person made a choice, that is a fact. It is as neutral as the fact that the sun rose this morning, or that the tide will come in. The suffering comes from the meaning we attach to that fact. And this is the first great secret, the first taste of freedom. You have the power to change the story. You cannot change what happened, but you can, with practice and with courage, change what it means. Think of one of the most celebrated figures in American history, Abraham Lincoln. Before he was the great emancipator, before his face was carved into a mountain, he was a man defined by what many would call catastrophic failure and rejection. His first business venture failed, leaving him in debt for years. The first woman he truly loved, Anne Rutledge, died tragically, leaving him in a state of profound depression that friends feared would lead him to take his own life. He then ran for political office and lost again, and again. He was defeated in races for the state legislature, for the U.S. Congress, for the Senate, and for the vice presidential nomination. At one point, he wrote to a friend, "I am now the most miserable man living. If what I feel were equally distributed to the whole human family, there would not be one cheerful face on the earth." This was a man intimately acquainted with loss, with rejection, with the world telling him time and time again that he was not enough. He could have accepted that story. He could have allowed the opinion of the voters, the cruelty of fate to define his worth. He could have let the grief of a lost love become the final chapter of his life. But he didn't. He understood perhaps intuitively what the Stoics taught explicitly. The events were just events. The failures were feedback. The pain was a teacher. He didn't allow the story of "I am a failure" to take root. Instead, he separated the event from his opinion of it. He chose to write a different story. I am a man who is learning. I am a man who endures. I am a man who will not quit. And in doing so, he transformed the crushing weight of his past into the very foundation of his legendary strength and resolve. Your situation is no different. The pain you feel is real, just as Lincoln's was. But like him, you are at a point of decision. Will you let this rejection be the final word on your value, or will you see it for what it is? Feedback. Information. A powerful, albeit painful signal that the path you were on has come to an end and a new one must be forged. The illusion you held was not necessarily that she loved you. The illusion was that your happiness, your sense of self, was dependent on her love continuing forever. The Stoics would call this attaching your peace to an external. Externals are anything outside of your complete control, other people's opinions, health, wealth, and yes, the affections of another person. To build your house of happiness on the foundation of an external is to build it on shifting sand. Sooner or later, the tide will come in. For you, the tide has come in. The illusion of permanence has been shattered, and while it feels like you are standing amidst the ruins, you are actually standing on cleared ground. The faulty foundation has been washed away, and for the first time, you have the opportunity to build on solid rock. The rock of your own character, your own principles, your own internal strength. The Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius, perhaps the most powerful man in the world during his time, constantly wrote to himself in his private journal, which we now know as meditations. He reminded himself over and over again, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." This is your first task on the path. Not to stop loving her, not to pretend you don't feel pain, not to rush into anger or bitterness. Your first task is simply to realize this truth, to sit with the discomfort and observe the stories your mind is telling you, to see them not as facts, but as opinions, to recognize that the storm is not the world, but your interpretation of it. This is the beginning of detaching from the outcome and reattaching to your own inner world. It is the first step in taking back your power, not from her, but from your own emotional reactions. In this cleared space on this solid ground, we will begin to build. We will explore how to harness the fire of this moment, not to lash out, but to light your own way forward. This is not a journey of revenge. It is a journey of rebirth, and it starts now with the simple, quiet acceptance that what has happened is not the end, but the beginning, your beginning. And so, you find yourself standing on this cleared ground. The storm of the event has passed, but the air is still thick with the echoes of it. The stories your mind tells you about your worth and about your future still whisper from the shadows. Recognizing that these are just stories, just opinions is the first step. But what is the second? How do you stop the whispers from becoming a roar? How do you begin to build something new and unbreakable on this empty plot of land where your old world used to stand? This is where the Stoics give us our architectural plans. It's a principle so simple in its phrasing, yet so profound in its application, that it can single-handedly revolutionize a person's life. It is the core operating system of a tranquil mind. It's often called the dichotomy of control. But let's strip away the philosophical label and call it what it is, the great liberation. It is the liberation from fighting battles you can never win. The ancient sage Epictetus, whose wisdom we touched on earlier, laid it out with beautiful clarity. He taught that in this life, some things are up to us and some things are not. That's it. That is the entire framework. What is up to us? Our thoughts, our judgments, our choices, our actions, our character. The effort we put in. The integrity with which we behave. Our internal world. And what is not up to us? Everything else? The weather, the economy, how other people behave, what they think, what they feel, what they choose. And yes, whether the woman you love chooses to stay. Her decision to be with another man falls squarely unequivocally into the category of things not up to us. You could be the kindest, strongest, most successful man on earth, and you could still not control the heart of another. To believe you can is the source of immense and unnecessary suffering. It's like trying to command the rain to stop or the sun to rise in the west. It is a fight against the very nature of reality, and it is a fight you will lose every single time. Most men in your position exhaust themselves in this unwinnable war. They waste precious days, weeks, months, sometimes years of their lives pouring their energy into the wrong category. They analyze her actions. Why did she post that? What does that message mean? They try to influence her feelings. If I just show her how much I've changed, she'll come back. They obsess over the other man. What does he have that I don't? They are in essence standing on the shore, screaming at the tide to turn back. It is a spectacle of profound and tragic futility. The Stoic man. The man you are becoming refuses to participate in this spectacle. He accepts reality as it is not as he wishes it would be. This acceptance is not passive resignation. It is not a sigh of defeat. It is a strategic and powerful reallocation of energy. It is the act of a wise general who, upon seeing an impenetrable fortress, does not waste his soldiers' lives by charging headfirst into its walls. Instead, he turns his attention to the territory he can conquer, to the land that is his to command himself. Think of it like this. You are an archer. Your task is to shoot an arrow. What is within your control? You can choose the best bow you can afford. You can practice day after day to strengthen your arms and steady your hand. You can carefully select a straight, well-balanced arrow. You can study the wind. You can calm your breath, fix your eye on the target, and execute a clean, smooth release. All of this, the training, the focus, the intention, the execution is up to you. This is your domain. But the moment that arrow leaves your bowstring, the outcome is no longer in your hands. A sudden gust of wind might blow it off course. The target might move. A bird might fly into its path. The foolish archer obsesses over the outcome. If the arrow misses, he smashes his bow in frustration. He curses the wind. He declares himself a failure. His happiness is entirely dependent on where that arrow lands. But the Stoic archer, the wise archer, places his pride and his purpose in the process. He finds his success in the quality of his aim, in the calmness of his release, in knowing that he did everything within his power to the best of his ability. He hopes the arrow hits the bullseye, of course, but his sense of worth is not tied to it. When he has done his part, he lets go of the result. He understands where his control ends. Her choosing another man is the arrow that has already been shot. It has left the bow, and it has landed where it has landed. Your work is not to run after it to try and pull it from its destination and force it back into the bow. Your work is to turn your attention back to yourself, the archer, to your own form, your own strength, your own next shot. Every ounce of energy you spend thinking about her checking her social media, wondering what she's doing, is energy you are stealing from your own training. It is an act of self-sabotage. You are weakening the archer for the sake of an arrow that is already gone. This realization is where the first glimmers of real power begin to emerge. It feels like a weight being lifted. You don't have to figure her out. You don't have to win her back. You don't have to prove your worth to her. You are released from all of that. Your only responsibility now is to yourself. This isn't selfish. It's the most responsible and dignified path you can take. It's a quiet declaration of self-respect. You are saying, my peace of mind is more valuable than torturing myself over something I cannot change. My energy is a finite resource, and I will now invest it in my own growth, not in a fruitless obsession with her choices. This is not about being cold or emotionless. You can feel sadness for the loss. You can feel disappointment. The Stoics were not unfeeling robots. They were deeply engaged with the world, but they understood that we must feel our emotions without letting them command us. You can acknowledge the sadness like a passing cloud without allowing it to become the entire sky. You can say to yourself, I acknowledge that this hurts. I acknowledge the loss of what I had hoped for. And I will now turn my focus to what is within my control, my response to this pain, my actions today. The kind of man I will be right now in this moment. This is the true meaning of letting her go. It is not a single dramatic act. It is 1,000 small daily choices. It is the choice not to check her profile, the choice to mute conversations about her, the choice to redirect your thoughts when they drift toward her. It is the conscious, deliberate practice of pulling your energy back from the external and reinvesting it in the internal. Each time you do this, you are strengthening the archer. You are building a new kind of muscle, the muscle of emotional discipline. And here is the beautiful paradox. The moment you stop fighting to control the uncontrollable, you gain an immense sense of control over your own life. The man who is no longer tossed about by the waves of what she might be thinking or doing becomes the captain of his own ship. He can now set a course. He can now navigate by his own stars. He is no longer adrift. In letting go of the unwinnable battle for her, you begin to win the all-important war for yourself. And from this place of newfound stability and self-possession, we can begin to explore the next crucial question. Now that you've conserved all this energy, what precisely do you do with it? How do you use it to forge the man she will one day realize she was not ready for? So, you have pulled your energy back. You have made the monumental decision to stop fighting the unwinnable war, to cease your attempts to control the uncontrollable. This energy, once scattered to the winds of worry and obsession, is now back where it belongs within you. It sits like a coiled spring, a reservoir of potential. And the question we left hanging in the air, the most important question of this moment, is what is its first and most crucial purpose? How do you begin to wield this power you've just reclaimed? The first act of the new man you are building is not an action at all in the conventional sense. It is an act of profound, deliberate, and powerful inaction. It is the practice of silence. In a world that screams for immediate reaction, where every slight demands a retort and every question expects an answer, silence is a form of quiet rebellion. It is the most misunderstood and underestimated tool in the arsenal of a strong man. When she chose another, she expected a reaction. Society expects a reaction. Your own mind in its panic begs for you to speak, to explain, to persuade, to rage, to get one last word in. It tells you that if you could just craft the perfect sentence, the perfect paragraph, you could reverse her decision. It whispers that your silence will be mistaken for weakness or indifference. The Stoic knows this is a lie. He understands that your silence is not for her. It is for you. It is the wall you build around your own recovering mind, protecting it from the chaos of the outside world and the turmoil of your own impulses. It is the sanctuary where you begin the sacred work of healing and rebuilding. Think of your emotional state right now as a lake that has been violently shaken by a storm. The water is murky, filled with sediment and debris. You cannot see clearly through it. Any action you take, any word you speak from this state will be born of that murky confusion. The desperate late-night text, the angry voicemail, the social media post designed to get her attention, these are all actions taken from the depths of a clouded lake, and they will only stir the waters further. Silence is the act of letting the lake become still. It is allowing the sediment of pain, anger, and confusion to slowly, naturally settle to the bottom. It takes time, it requires patience, and it demands that you resist the urge to throw more stones into the water. Every time you reach out to her, every time you engage, you are throwing another stone. You are kicking up the mud, prolonging your own suffering, and delaying your own clarity. Let's be very clear about what this silence entails. This is not the silent treatment, which is a childish and manipulative tactic used to punish another person. That kind of silence is loud. It is filled with angry expectation. Stoic silence is different. It is serene. It is a turning inward. It has no expectation of her. It is the complete and total withdrawal of your attention and energy from her direction. This means no calls, no texts, no viewing her social media profiles, no asking mutual friends about her. It is a clean, quiet, and dignified amputation. You are removing that which no longer serves your well-being so that you can heal. There is a historical figure, a Roman statesman and a devout Stoic named Cato the Younger. He was a man renowned for his unwavering integrity in an age of rampant corruption. He was often surrounded by the noise of politics, by gossip, by slander, by the desperate pleadings of lesser men. And one of his most powerful tools was his dignified silence. When faced with absurdity or insults, he would often simply remain silent, refusing to lower himself to the level of the chaos. His silence wasn't empty. It was full. It was full of his principles, his self-respect, his refusal to be baited into a meaningless conflict. It was said that his silence was often more damning and more powerful than the most eloquent speech of his opponents. You must now adopt the silence of Cato. Your silence communicates something far more powerful than any words you could muster. It communicates that your life, your peace, and your focus are now elsewhere. It communicates that you respect yourself too much to beg for attention. It communicates that her decision, while perhaps painful, was not fatal to your sense of self. It communicates without a single word that you are moving on. And in a strange twist of human psychology, it is this very absence, this quiet withdrawal, that often creates the first pangs of true regret in the one who left. They expect a chase. When they receive nothing but a profound and unending silence, they are left alone with their choice. The narrative in their mind can no longer be, "He's falling apart without me." It begins to shift to, "Why isn't he falling apart? Did I misjudge his strength? Did I underestimate his value?" But again, that is merely a byproduct. The true purpose of your silence is the creation of a vacuum, and into this vacuum, you can finally begin to pull in things that will serve you. While your mind is not occupied with composing the next text message, it is free to read a book. While your thumbs are not scrolling through her past, they are free to grip a barbell at the gym. While your voice is not pleading for closure, it is free to speak with conviction about your own goals and plans with men you respect. And let us speak of closure for a moment, because it is the siren song that lures so many men back into the rocks of pointless communication. You feel you need it. You need to understand. You need her to explain it in a way that will finally soothe the wound. This is one of the greatest illusions of a broken heart. You are seeking a cure from the very source of the ailment. Closure is not a conversation. It is not a gift that she can give you. If she could give you what you needed, she would not have left. Closure is a decision you make internally. It is the moment you accept the reality of the situation, turn your back on the door that has been closed to you, and begin walking down your own path. It is a promise you make to yourself, "I will no longer seek answers from a place that only offers more questions." My story moves forward from here, with or without a neat and tidy explanation. Your silence is the first chapter of that new story. This will be difficult. The addiction to connection is real. The phantom limb will ache. You will compose 100 messages in your mind. This is the moment of your training. This is the resistance you must lift. Every time the urge arises and you choose stillness instead, you are performing a repetition for your soul. You are building the muscle of self-mastery. This is the quiet, unseen, and heroic work of becoming the man you were meant to be. This silence is not an empty void to be endured. It is the fertile ground where your new life will take root. It is the workshop, the monastery, the training ground. And once you have secured this sacred space, once you have learned to be still and at peace within it, the real transformative work of rebuilding your world can truly begin. Inside the sanctuary of your silence, the world begins to quiet down. The frantic need to explain, to understand, to be heard starts to fade. You have let the murky waters of your mind begin to settle, but silence alone is not the cure. It is the sterile operating room. Now the surgery to heal and rebuild must begin. And the first incision, the first act of deliberate creation in your new life, might surprise you. It is not an attack on your thoughts, not an intellectual exercise. The first step is to return to the earth, to return to the one thing you inhabit every second of every day, the thing that heartbreak often makes us forget: we even have your body. The Stoics, alongside nearly every great philosophical tradition, understood a truth our modern world has largely forgotten. A resilient mind cannot be housed in a neglected body. The mind and body are not two separate entities engaged in a cold war. They are a single unified system. When the mind suffers, the body withers. And when the body is weak, the mind is easily thrown into chaos. In the aftermath of a rejection like this, you are living almost entirely in your head. Your mind is a battlefield of looping thoughts of past memories and future fears. You become a ghost in your own life, haunting the corridors of what was. To begin your recovery, you must become grounded again. You must become physical. This is not about vanity. Let me be very clear. This is not about building a revenge body so you can post a photo online and hope she sees it. To do that would be to fall back into the same old trap, seeking validation from an external source, making her the center of your actions. No, this is something far deeper, far more personal. This is about forging the body to fortify the mind. It is about taking the chaotic, fiery, and painful energy of your heartbreak and transmuting it into something ordered, powerful, and useful. Imagine you are a blacksmith. The pain of her departure is the searing, white-hot fire of the forge. It is uncontrollable and dangerous on its own. Your body, softened and perhaps neglected in the comfort of the relationship, is the raw, unformed iron. And your will, the part of you that decided to walk this path, is the hammer. Each day you will take that raw iron of your body and place it in the fire of your emotional pain. You will not run from the heat. You will use it. And then with the hammer of your will, you will begin to strike. Every drop of sweat is a spark flying from the anvil. Every strained muscle is the metal taking a new shape. Every labored breath is the sound of transformation. You are not destroying the pain. You are using its energy to create something new, something strong, something resilient, something that can withstand far greater temperatures than before. This process is powerful because it is immediate and it is entirely within your control. You cannot control whether she misses you. You cannot control what she is doing, but you can control the decision to do one more push-up. You can control the choice to run for 5 more minutes. You can control the feeling of the weight in your hand. In a world that has just shown you how powerless you are over the feelings of another, rediscovering your power over your own physical self is like finding water in a desert. Each repetition, each workout is a small, tangible victory. It is a vote you cast for your future self over your broken past self. It is a physical declaration that says, I am still here, I am in command of this vessel, and I am getting stronger. The ancient Greeks, the intellectual forefathers of the Stoics, made no distinction between the philosopher and the athlete. Plato's famous academy, the birthplace of Western philosophy, was not just a lecture hall. It was located next to a gymnasium. The students would exercise their bodies with the same rigor they exercised their minds. They knew that virtues like endurance, discipline, and courage were not just abstract concepts. They were qualities forged through physical hardship. How can you speak of mental endurance if you have never pushed your body past the point of wanting to quit? How can you understand discipline if you cannot command your own limbs to move when they are tired? This does not mean you must become a champion bodybuilder or a marathon runner overnight. The path of the Stoic is not about sudden extreme acts. It is about consistent, deliberate practice. It begins with a single step, literally. It might be a walk around the block just to feel your legs moving and the air in your lungs pulling you out of your head and into the present moment. Tomorrow, it might be a longer walk. The next week, it might be a slow jog. Or perhaps you find a home in the quiet solitude of lifting weights, the simple, honest transaction between you, the iron, and gravity. Maybe it's the fluid discipline of martial arts or the focused breathing of yoga. The specific activity matters far less than the intention behind it. Your intention is to show up, to engage with physical reality, and to reclaim ownership of your own physical being. As you begin this practice, something remarkable will happen. The physical exertion provides a channel for the storm inside you. The anger and frustration that might have festered and turned into bitterness now have an outlet. You leave it on the gym floor, on the running trail, on the training mat. You return home not just physically tired, but mentally clearer. The endorphins released from the exercise will act as a natural balm to your aching mind. You will sleep better. Your thoughts will feel less frantic, less sticky. The sharp edges of your pain will begin to soften. You are moving the struggle from the ethereal, uncontrollable realm of her mind and her life into the tangible, controllable realm of your own body. This is the first great act of building. You are not just building muscle, you are building a new foundation for your sanity. You are reinforcing the container that holds your mind. As you forge your body, you will notice a new clarity emerging. The physical discipline will create mental space. And into this newfound space, a new, more powerful question will begin to arise. It is the question that follows the rediscovery of strength, stronger for what? Once the vessel is forged and fortified, it needs a purpose. It needs a direction. It needs a North Star to guide it out of the harbor. And discovering that mission, that purpose, which is entirely your own, is where our journey will take us next. The echo of your footsteps on the morning pavement, the satisfying ache of a body that has been asked to do difficult things, the newfound clarity in your gaze. This is the new rhythm of your life. You have taken the first most crucial steps away from the wreckage of the past. You have built a sanctuary of silence and begun to re-inhabit your own physical form. You are becoming a fortress. But a fortress, no matter how strong, is a defensive structure. It protects, but it does not advance. A strong vessel needs a destination. A rhythm needs a song. And a man to be truly whole needs a purpose. The ancient Greeks had a word for this, a concept that sits at the very heart of a meaningful life, telos. It translates roughly to an end, a goal, an ultimate aim, but it's more than just a goal. It is the inherent purpose of a thing, the reason it exists. The telos of an acorn is to become an oak tree. The telos of a knife is to cut cleanly. The question the Stoics implore us to ask is, what is the telos of a man? And more specifically, what is your telos? For a time, perhaps she was your purpose. Her happiness, the life you were building together, the future you imagined, this became the central organizing principle of your existence. And that is why her departure felt like more than just a heartbreak. It felt like an erasure of your own identity. The ship didn't just lose its co-captain, it lost its destination, its maps, its reason for sailing. It was left adrift. The Stoic path does not ask you to simply find a new destination. It invites you to find a purpose so great, so deeply and authentically your own, that no single person's presence or absence can ever define you again. It asks you to become the North Star of your own life. This is the ultimate antidote to the pain you have experienced. When your life revolves around another person, you are in a constant state of low-grade anxiety, consciously or unconsciously, trying to please them, to manage their emotions, to secure their affection. Your center of gravity is outside of yourself. When your life revolves around a purpose, a mission, your center of gravity returns to where it belongs, deep within your own soul. The relationship, should one come along, becomes a wonderful addition to your journey, a valued partner on your ship, but it is not the destination itself. The mission is the destination. Your journey continues with or without a passenger, because the course is set by you. So, how does one find this grand purpose? It does not arrive like a lightning bolt in the middle of the night. It is rarely a single dramatic revelation. More often than not, it is discovered in the ashes of who we used to be. There was a man, a psychiatrist and philosopher named Viktor Frankl. During the Second World War, he was imprisoned in the Nazi concentration camps. He was stripped of everything a human being can lose: his home, his career, his freedom, his family, including his wife, who perished in the camps. He was subjected to starvation, disease, and unimaginable brutality. He lived each day on the precipice of death. In the heart of this darkness, surrounded by suffering that defies words, Frankl made one of the most profound discoveries about the human spirit. He observed that the prisoners who had the best chance of survival were not necessarily the physically strongest, but those who had a why to live for. They had a reason to endure the suffering, a loved one they hoped to see again, an unfinished work they needed to complete, a future they held on to. Frankl himself found his purpose in that very abyss. He decided that his mission, should he survive, would be to help others understand how to find meaning even in the most desperate of circumstances. He wrote, "Everything can be taken from a man, but one thing, the last of the human freedoms, to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances, to choose one's own way." The one freedom his captors could not take from him was his ability to find a purpose in his suffering. Frankl's experience was extreme, but his discovery is universal, and it speaks directly to you now. He teaches us that purpose is not something you find only in a comfortable, happy life. It is something you can forge in the very fire that you think is destroying you. Your pain, your heartbreak, is a powerful lens. It clarifies what truly matters. It burns away the trivialities and distractions. Right now, your soul is fertile for this kind of discovery. So, where do you begin? It does not begin with a grand pronouncement like, "My purpose is to save the world." It begins with quiet questions and small, deliberate actions. Take out a journal inside the sanctuary of your silence and ask yourself, what subjects have I always been curious about, but never pursued? What problem in my community or in the world, however small, genuinely bothers me? When I was a child before, the world told me who I should be. What did I love to do? If I knew I could not fail, what is one skill I would dedicate myself to mastering? Your purpose is often hidden at the intersection of four things: what you are good at, what you love to do, what the world needs, and what you can be valued for. You don't need to find the answer to all of these at once. You simply need to start exploring. Pick one thing, a small thing. Maybe it's deciding to master a new language. Maybe it's volunteering for a local charity one weekend a month. Maybe it's learning to build something with your hands, a piece of furniture, a computer program, a garden. Maybe it is dedicating yourself to becoming the absolute best in your current profession, not for the money or the status, but for the sake of excellence itself. The specific what is less important at first than the why. Your why is this: I am doing this because it is a worthy challenge. I am doing this to cultivate discipline. I am doing this to contribute something, however small, beyond my own pain. I am doing this because it is entirely mine. This shifts your identity. You are no longer the man who got left. You become the man who is learning Japanese, or the man who is building a community garden, or the man mastering his craft. You are defined by your actions and your aims, not by the choices of another. This is how you begin to fill your life with a sense of meaning that is completely independent of a romantic relationship. And a funny thing happens when you do this. Your life becomes interesting. You become interesting. You develop a passion and a quiet confidence that radiates from you. It is the furthest thing from the neediness and desperation that follows a breakup. It is the calm, magnetic energy of a man who knows where he is going. As you begin to walk this new path, guided by your emerging purpose, you will inevitably face resistance. The old habits of thought, the siren song of distraction, the fear of failure. This is why discovering your purpose is only half the journey. The other half is cultivating the character required to see it through, to walk the path with virtue and resolve. And learning to cultivate that character will be the subject of our next conversation. You have found a direction, a telos. It may still be a faint signal, a whisper on the wind, but it is there. A reason to get out of bed in the morning that has nothing to do with her. A project, a skill, a mission that is entirely your own. You have a map. But a map is useless if you do not know how to read it or how to navigate the treacherous and unpredictable terrain it represents. The world will not simply step aside to let you pursue your purpose. Life, in its infinite and often harsh wisdom, will test you. It will present obstacles, frustrations, and moments of doubt. This is why the Stoics taught that the ultimate purpose of life was not the achievement of any external goal, but the cultivation of an excellent character along the way. They had a word for this too, and it is the most important word in their entire philosophy, arete. It is often translated as virtue, but a better translation might be excellence of character or moral greatness. The Stoics believed that happiness, peace, and fulfillment were not things to be chased directly, but were the natural byproducts of a life lived with arete. This is the internal compass you will use to navigate the map of your purpose. This is how you ensure your journey is honorable regardless of the destination you reach. The Stoics distilled this concept of arete into 4 cardinal virtues. Think of them as the 4 legs of a table. If one is missing or weak, the entire structure becomes unstable. These are not abstract saintly qualities. They are practical daily disciplines. They are the tools you will use to build your new life. The first virtue is wisdom. Not the wisdom of knowing facts and figures, but the practical wisdom of knowing how to live. It is the ability to differentiate between what is truly good for your soul, what is truly bad, and what is merely indifferent. In your current situation, wisdom is the faculty that allows you to understand truly and deeply that her leaving is an indifferent event. It feels catastrophic, but it has no bearing on your capacity to be a good man. It does not diminish your character. What is good or bad is how you respond. Responding with dignity, self-respect, and a commitment to growth is good. Responding with bitterness, obsession, and self-pity is bad. Wisdom is the clear-eyed navigator who, in the middle of the storm, can still tell the difference between the roaring wind and the true direction of north. Each day you practice wisdom by observing your own reactions and asking, is this response serving my better self? Is this thought leading me toward tranquility or turmoil? The second virtue is courage. And again, this is not just the courage of a soldier on the battlefield. For you right now, courage takes on a different form. It is the quiet courage to sit with your own pain without immediately reaching for a distraction. It is the courage to enforce the silence we spoke of, to not send that text when your entire being is screaming for you to do so. It is the courage to be alone and find that you are enough. It is the courage to pursue your new purpose, to be a beginner at something, to risk failure and looking foolish. Every time you choose the difficult, virtuous path over the easy, comfortable one, you are practicing courage. It is the virtue that says, I am afraid, but I will act anyway, because my principles are more important than my fear. The third virtue is justice. This might seem out of place in a discussion about heartbreak, but it is essential. Justice for the Stoics meant living with integrity, fairness, and goodwill towards all people as members of a single human community. In your context, this means refusing to let bitterness poison your soul. It means not speaking ill of her, not indulging in slander, or seeking petty revenge. Why not for her sake, but for yours? To engage in injustice and malice is to harm your own character. Justice is the understanding that she is a human being with her own flaws, fears, and reasons, who made a choice. You do not have to agree with her choice, but you can choose to respond with a dignified integrity that keeps your side of the street clean. It is the quiet refusal to become a villain in your own story, regardless of how you feel you were wronged. It is the virtue that maintains your humanity. And the fourth virtue is temperance, or discipline. This is the master virtue that binds the others together. It is self-control, the mastery of your own impulses. It is the discipline to get up and train your body when you would rather stay in bed. It is the discipline to work on your purpose when the siren song of distraction calls to you. It is the discipline to practice wisdom, courage, and justice, especially when you don't feel like it. Temperance is the steady hand on the tiller, keeping the ship of your life on course day after day, through calm seas and rough waters. It is the embodiment of the archer we spoke of, consistently practicing his form, building strength not through passion, but through patient, repeated effort. Consider the story of George Washington during the American Revolutionary War, specifically the brutal winter at Valley Forge. His army was starving, freezing, and ravaged by disease. Desertion was rampant. The entire revolutionary cause, his life's great purpose, was on the brink of complete collapse. In this moment of extreme adversity, Washington's greatness was not defined by a single brilliant victory, but by his embodiment of these four virtues. He showed the wisdom to hold his army together and train them even when all seemed lost. He demonstrated incredible courage, sharing the hardships with his men and refusing to despair. He acted with justice, treating his men with respect and fighting for their cause. And he lived with immense temperance, enduring the same brutal conditions as the lowest-ranking private, a model of disciplined resolve. It was the excellence of his character, his arete, that held the revolution together in its darkest hour. Your Valley Forge is now. This period of heartbreak, loneliness, and uncertainty is your training ground. Every day presents you with dozens of opportunities to practice these virtues in small ways. When you feel the urge to wallow in self-pity, you can choose the courage to get up and go for a walk. When you are tempted to speak bitterly about her to a friend, you can choose the justice of holding your peace. When you are about to indulge in a distraction to numb the pain, you can choose the temperance to sit with the feeling for just 5 minutes longer. And when you successfully do any of these things, you can use your wisdom to recognize it as a victory for your character. As you begin to live this way day by day, choice by choice, you are no longer just healing. You are evolving. You are building an internal citadel, a fortress of character that cannot be breached by external events. You are becoming a man whose worth is not derived from another's approval, but from his own demonstrated virtue. But this citadel must be tested. The world will throw obstacles in the path of your new purpose. And learning how to meet these obstacles not as setbacks, but as the very fuel for your growth is the great art of the Stoic life. And that is what we will explore together in our next conversation. You have drawn the map of your purpose. You have begun to forge the virtues that will serve as your compass: wisdom, courage, justice, and temperance. You are building day by day an internal citadel. But as you take your first steps on this new path, you will quickly discover a fundamental truth of existence: the path is not clear. It is littered with obstacles. Your plans will fail. People will misunderstand you. You will face frustration, delays, and moments where the temptation to quit feels overwhelming. The common response to an obstacle is to see it as a misfortune. We curse it. We lament our bad luck. We see it as an unjust barrier standing between us and our desired destination, and we are diminished by it. But the Stoic, the man you are becoming learns to see things differently. He understands a secret that turns the whole of life from a struggle into a grand and meaningful game. He learns that the obstacle is not in the way. The obstacle is the way. This is perhaps the most active and powerful mindset in the entire Stoic philosophy. It is the art of turning every negative into a positive, every setback into a step forward. The Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius wrote it beautifully for himself in his journal. The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. What does this mean? It means that the very thing that seems to be blocking you is in fact the perfect opportunity to practice the virtues you have been cultivating. The obstacle is not a roadblock, it is a training ground. Let's make this practical. You are working on your new purpose, and a key project at work which you need to succeed suddenly fails. The old you would have seen this as a disaster, a sign that you're not good enough, a source of immense stress and anxiety. But the new you, the philosopher in training, pauses. He asks, what is the opportunity here? What virtue can I practice? The failure of the project is a perfect opportunity to practice. The courage to analyze what went wrong without blaming others. It's a chance to practice wisdom, to learn from the mistakes so they are not repeated. It's an opportunity to practice temperance, to handle the disappointment without losing your composure. The project's failure, the very thing that seemed to be a disaster, becomes the perfect gymnasium for your character. You emerge from it stronger, wiser, and more resilient than if the project had succeeded easily. The obstacle became the way. This leads us to an even more profound, almost radical concept. The Stoics aimed for amor fati, a Latin phrase that means a love of one's fate. This is the practice of not just accepting what happens, but loving it. Embracing every moment, every event, the pleasant and the painful, as if you had willed it to happen yourself. Why? Because if the obstacle is the way, then every event, no matter how challenging, is a gift. It is exactly the event you needed to practice virtue and become the person you are meant to be. It is not a punishment, it is your curriculum. To love your fate is to reach a state of sublime freedom. You are no longer at war with reality. You are dancing with it. The universe is no longer a hostile force, but a sparring partner, constantly providing you with the perfect challenges to make you stronger. Consider the story of the great inventor, Thomas Edison. In 1914, an enormous fire broke out at his laboratory complex in New Jersey. It was a massive blaze fed by the chemicals in the labs, and it quickly consumed almost his entire life's work. Years of research, priceless records, and one-of-a-kind prototypes were all going up in smoke. His 24-year-old son, Charles, frantically searched for his father, expecting to find him utterly devastated. When he finally found him, Edison was standing calmly watching the flames leap into the night sky. He turned to his son and said with a strange excitement in his voice, "Go get your mother and all her friends. They'll never see a fire like this again." When his son expressed his shock and disbelief, Edison simply said, "It's all right. We've just got a lot of rubbish cleaned out." The next morning, standing amidst the smoldering ruins, the 67-year-old inventor told a reporter, "There is great value in disaster. All our mistakes are burned up. Thank God we can start anew." And he immediately set about the work of rebuilding, ultimately turning an even greater profit the following year. This is amor fati in action. Edison didn't waste a moment in regret or self-pity. He couldn't control the fire, but he could control his response. He didn't just accept the disaster. He found the opportunity within it. He saw the cleared ground. Your lab has burned down. The life you were building, the sentimental records you kept, the future you had designed with her, it has all gone up in smoke. And you have a choice. You can stand in the ashes and lament what has been lost. Or, like Edison, you can feel a strange sense of liberation and say, "All my mistakes are burned up. I can start anew." You can see this not as the end, but as the ultimate clearing of rubbish, giving you the chance to build something far better, far stronger, and far more true. You can begin to practice this mindset today in the smallest of ways. When you are stuck in traffic, don't see it as a frustrating delay. See it as a deliberate lesson in patience, a gift from the universe to practice your temperance. When someone is rude to you, don't see it as a personal attack. See it as a chance to practice your justice by choosing not to retaliate in kind, and your wisdom by recognizing that their rudeness is a reflection of their own inner state, not yours. When you face a setback in your purpose, see it as a test of your courage and resolve. Turn your life into a game where the goal is to find the opportunity in every obstacle. This shift in perspective is the most powerful alchemy you can perform. It transforms the lead of suffering into the gold of wisdom and strength. You are learning to turn friction into fuel. You are learning to see every problem as a sparring partner in the gymnasium of your character. But what happens when the sparring partner is not a random event or a stranger? What happens when it is the ghost of your past appearing right in front of you? What happens when you see her again? Or when she reaches out with a text message testing the foundations of this new citadel you have so carefully built? Learning to face that specific obstacle, the one that started this whole journey, with the same grace, indifference, and love of fate, is the next great test. And it is the test we shall prepare for next. You have learned to transform the friction of life into the fuel of your own growth. You have practiced turning the lead of everyday frustration into the gold of virtue. The rude driver, the failed project, the unexpected delay, these have become your sparring partners, your teachers in the great dojo of life. You have learned that the obstacle is the way. But what happens when the obstacle is not a random event or a stranger? What happens when the obstacle has a name, a face, and a history that is deeply entangled with your own? What happens when she comes back? Let us be clear, this may not be a physical return. It may not be a knock on your door with a request for forgiveness. The return is often far more subtle, and in many ways more insidious. It is the unexpected text message late at night. It is the like on a photo from months ago. It is the casual, accidental encounter at a place you used to frequent. It is the ghost of your past, materializing in the present, testing the very foundations of the citadel you have so carefully built. This is the final exam, and how you handle it will reveal whether your strength is real or merely a performance. The old you would have leaped at this moment. A text message would have been a surge of hope. A chance encounter would have sent your heart racing with possibility. You would have analyzed every word, every gesture, searching for a sign that she regrets her decision, that she wants you back. This is the trap. The Stoic, armed with the virtue of wisdom, sees this event not as a second chance, but simply as another external event to be examined calmly and rationally. First, you must understand the likely motivation behind her return. This is not to judge her, but to protect your own peace. When a woman who left reaches out after a period of silence, it is rarely for the reasons you hope. It is often because her own new situation is not the fantasy she imagined. It may be because she has seen or heard that you are not just surviving, but thriving, and this disrupts her narrative. It may be a simple test of her own power, a subconscious desire to see if she can still elicit a reaction from you to confirm that she still holds a space in your mind. Her outreach is almost always about her needs, her ego, her regret, or her curiosity. It is not in this initial stage about your value. To believe otherwise is to hand your power right back to her. So, how do you respond? You respond by consulting your virtues. Let us take the most common test, the simple ambiguous text message. Hey, or thinking of you, or how have you been? The Stoic applies temperance or discipline. He recognizes the immediate emotional spike, the flicker of hope, or the jolt of anger. And he does not act on it. He breathes. He remembers his training. He then applies wisdom. What is the virtuous purpose of engaging in this conversation? Will it serve my telos? Will it enhance my tranquility? Or will it pull me back into the murky waters of the past? The answer in almost every case is that it will pull you back. Therefore, the most common and often the most powerful Stoic response is the one we have already practiced: silence. Your silence is not a game. It is a statement of fact. It says, my life is moving in a different direction now, and this conversation is not on my path. You are not ignoring her. You are attending to your own peace. Now consider the chance encounter. You see her across the room at a social gathering. The Stoic applies courage. He does not flee. He does not hide in a corner. To do so would be to admit that she still has power over his emotional state. But nor does he seek her out. He simply continues to exist calmly and with dignity in his space. If eye contact is made, he might offer a brief neutral nod, the same polite acknowledgement he would give to a distant acquaintance. If conversation is unavoidable, he applies all the virtues at once. He is courageous enough to be present just enough to be polite, temperate enough to keep it brief, and wise enough not to open any doors to the past. His demeanor is calm, his words are few, and his energy is peaceful. His composure is the message. It says more than any long, heartfelt speech ever could. Finally, consider the ultimate test, the direct request to meet, to talk to, get closure. This is where you must be the unshakable guardian of your own citadel. This is where you must remember the story of Odysseus from Homer's The Odyssey. As his ship sailed past the island of the Sirens, he knew their enchanting song would lure him and his sailors to their deaths on the rocks. The song was a promise of everything he desired, a call back to a world of pleasure and ease. It was irresistible. So, what did he do? He didn't try to resist it with willpower alone. He had his men plug their ears with beeswax. This is your silence. And for himself, wanting to hear the song, but knowing his weakness, he had them tie him securely to the mast of the ship. This is you lashing yourself to your purpose, your telos. He could hear the beautiful, tempting call of the past, but he could not act on it. He was bound to his journey forward. Her request to meet is the siren's song. It promises answers, resolution, a soothing of the old wound. But it will almost certainly lead you back to the rocks of emotional turmoil. You must, like Odysseus, remain tied to the mast of your purpose. A polite, firm, and final refusal is an act of profound self-respect. I appreciate you reaching out, but I've closed that chapter of my life and I'm focused on moving forward. I wish you nothing but the best. This response is not born of anger or bitterness. It is born of wisdom. It is a recognition that your peace is your highest priority, and you will not sacrifice it to satisfy her curiosity or ease her guilt. Each of these scenarios is a final exam. Passing the test does not mean winning the interaction or making her feel regret. Passing the test means you remained undisturbed. It means your tranquility was unshaken. It means you acted in accordance with your virtues, not your old wounds. Every time you successfully navigate one of these tests, your internal citadel gets stronger. The ghost of the past loses its power. It can no longer haunt you because you have learned to see it not as a ghost, but simply as a memory, a cloud passing in the sky of your now serene mind. Once you have faced the siren's call and sailed past, you enter new waters, calmer, clearer, and vaster than you ever imagined. And it is here in this newfound freedom that you discover the ultimate truth of your entire journey. The siren's song has faded into the distance behind you. The crash of the waves against the rocks is now just a memory. You have sailed past the island of your past, tied securely to the mast of your purpose, and you now find yourself in new waters. Waters that are calmer, clearer, and more vast than you had ever imagined. In this profound quiet, you begin to notice something remarkable. The constant low-grade ache in your chest, the one you had grown so accustomed to that you almost mistook it for a part of yourself, is gone. And in its place there is a stillness, a deep, unshakable peace. And in this stillness, the ultimate truth of your entire journey finally crystallizes, shining with the simple, undeniable clarity of the morning sun. It is the realization that this entire story was never about winning her back. It was never about making her regret. The ultimate realization is this: she didn't break you, she revealed you. She didn't leave you, she released you. You were always the prize. Let that sink in. For months, perhaps longer, you have operated under a flawed premise. You believed you were the one who had been judged and found wanting. You believed you had lost something of irreplaceable value and that your worth was diminished by its absence. The entire game felt rigged because you were playing for the wrong prize. You thought the prize was her love, her presence, her approval. The Stoics teach us that this is the fundamental error of the untrained mind, to seek value in things external and outside of our control. The only prize truly worth winning, the only treasure that can never be lost or stolen, is a soul that is free, a mind that is its own master, an inner citadel that is impregnable. Your heartbreak was the key that unlocked the door to that citadel. You were forced to retreat within its walls for survival, and in doing so, you discovered that you were not a refugee seeking shelter. You were the king returning to his throne. Think of it this way. You are like a king who was cast out of his comfortable but small kingdom, the kingdom of the relationship. He was stripped of his titles, his robes, and his crown. and exiled into the wilderness of his own loneliness and pain. At first, he despaired, believing his identity was tied to the kingdom he had lost. But in the wilderness, he was forced to learn. He learned to hunt for his own food. This was you discovering your own purpose. He learned to build his own shelter. This was you forging your body. He learned to navigate by the stars. This was you cultivating the virtues. He became stronger, wiser, and more self-reliant than he ever was sitting on his cushioned throne. Eventually, he built a new kingdom in the wilderness, a better one inside himself. A kingdom of virtue, discipline, and purpose. One day a messenger arrives from his old kingdom, telling him he can return. But the king, now a true sovereign of himself, simply smiles. He no longer needs the old kingdom, he has become the kingdom. This is who you are now. You have built an inner world so rich, so purposeful, and so peaceful that you no longer need anything from the outside world to feel whole. And from this new perspective, you can look back at the past with a new kind of vision. What of her regret? The thought that once fueled so many fantasies of revenge. You now see it for what it is, an external and indifferent. It is a weather pattern in a country you no longer live in. If she feels it, that is a part of her journey. If she does not, that is also a part of her journey. It has absolutely no bearing on the peace you have so painstakingly cultivated within your own. Your victory is not her remorse. Your victory is your profound indifference to her verdict. Your win is your peace. What of getting her back? You now realize the absurdity of the thought. The man you were when she left no longer exists. And the man you are today has a different mission, different standards, a different telos. You have, in the most literal sense, outgrown the space she once occupied in your life. To return to her would be for the mighty oak tree to try and force itself back into the acorn from which it grew. It is not only impossible, it is undesirable. This is the final level of freedom. It is the quiet, unshakable confidence of a man who needs nothing, and therefore can enjoy everything with a light and graceful touch. If a new love comes into your life, you will be able to engage with it not from a place of needy desperation, but from a place of whole self-sufficient abundance. You will be able to love freely without the clutching fear of loss, because you know that even if you were to lose everything external, again, you would still have the one thing that matters: yourself, the kingdom within. This is the man you have become, not through a desire for vengeance, not to prove a point, but through the ancient, noble, and quiet art of self-mastery. You have transformed the greatest pain of your life into the foundation of your greatest strength. You have arrived at the summit. You have found the center. The final question is no longer how to get here, but how to live here. How do you make this state of being this profound peace not a temporary destination you have visited, but the permanent ground upon which you walk every single day for the rest of your life? That is the final and most important part of our journey together. And so, you have arrived. You have climbed the mountain of your own suffering, and now stand at the summit, not gasping for breath, but breathing easily in the clear, thin air of self-possession. You have discovered the ultimate truth that the kingdom you sought was never in another person's heart, but within the borders of your own mind. The peace you now feel is not a fleeting mood. It is the deep, resonant calm of a sovereign who is finally home. But here at the summit, we must ask the final, most important question. The journey to get here was a response to a crisis. So, what now? How do you live from this new height? How do you make this state of being this profound peace not a temporary destination? You have visited but the permanent ground upon which you walk every single day for the rest of your life. The answer is the simplest and most challenging one of all: the practice never ends. The Stoics did not see philosophy as a set of ideas to be learned, but as a way of life to be lived. It is a therapeia, a daily therapy for the soul. The war for your freedom may be over, but the peaceful discipline of maintaining that freedom continues for life. You have not graduated, you have simply earned the right to begin the real lifelong practice of being a good man. This is not a burden, it is a joy. It is the joyous lifelong work of tending to the garden of your own mind. When this journey began, your garden was overgrown with the weeds of grief, anger, and obsession. Together, we have done the hard work. We practiced silence, which cleared the land. We forged the body, which tilled and enriched the soil. We planted the first seeds of a new purpose, giving the garden a reason to exist. We learned to use the four great tools of virtue, wisdom, courage, justice, and temperance to cultivate it. We learn to see every rock and storm not as a curse, but as the necessary elements for growth, embracing our fate with amor fati. We face the ghosts of the past and let them pass by like clouds. But a garden is never finished. It requires daily attention. And so, your life from this point forward becomes a series of simple, quiet daily rituals. Your morning ritual becomes your time to prepare the soil. You wake, and before the world rushes in, you spend a few moments in reflection, as Marcus Aurelius did. You remind yourself of the virtues. You prepare for the day ahead, considering the challenges you might face and resolving to meet them with grace. You remind yourself of what is and is not in your control, setting the tone for a day of tranquility. Your daily discipline is the act of watering and tending. You continue to move your body, not as a punishment, but as a celebration of the physical vessel that carries you. You continue to dedicate time, even if it's just a few minutes, to your purpose, your telos. This is what gives your life its structure and its meaning. It is the steady work that keeps the garden growing. Your constant vigilance is the act of pulling the weeds. Throughout the day, you practice the art of observing your thoughts and impressions without immediate judgment. When an old negative thought pattern appears, a flicker of self-doubt, a twinge of resentment, you see it for what it is, a small weed. You don't curse it or water it with your attention. You simply acknowledge it and gently pull it out by returning your focus to the present moment and your virtuous path. And your evening review, as the great Stoic teacher Seneca advised, is your time to survey the day's work. Before you sleep, you walk through your garden once more. You ask yourself, not with harsh judgment, but with a kind and constructive eye, what bad habit did I curb today? What challenge did I meet with courage? Where did I act with wisdom? In what way am I a little better, a little stronger, a little more at peace than I was yesterday? This review is not about achieving perfection. It is about acknowledging progress. It is about learning from the day's lessons so that tomorrow you can be a slightly better gardener. This is how you live at the summit, not by standing still and admiring the view, but by recognizing that the summit is a plateau, a vast and beautiful landscape for you to cultivate for the rest of your days. The initial painful catalyst, her choice has become an afterthought. It was the earthquake that revealed the bedrock beneath your feet. And now you can feel a strange and wonderful new emotion beginning to bloom in your garden gratitude. You can be grateful for the journey, grateful for the strength you didn't know you had. And yes, in the quietest, wisest part of your soul, you can even be grateful for the pain that started it all. Because without it, you might have spent your entire life living in a small, borrowed kingdom, never discovering the vast and sovereign one that was waiting within you all along. You came here seeking a way to mend a broken heart, and you are leaving with a blueprint for an unbreakable soul. Walk on, good man. The practice continues, and your kingdom awaits in every single step you take. If you have found value in this journey, subscribe for more lessons in the art of living. Share this with a man who needs to hear it. And remember, the obstacle is always the way.